let's kick things off here. I'd like to thank Josh. I can see Josh is here from Super Oracles, the CEO of this project, who I'm sure a lot of listeners may or may not be familiar with yet, but I'd like to give him a warm welcome. And yeah, big shout out and thank you for joining our community call today. I see you have your hand raised, Josh. I will add you as a speaker now.
Hi, everyone. Am I coming through clearly?
Hi, Josh. I can hear you.
Hear me? Okay, good. Great to be here.
Welcome and nice to meet you.
You too.
Okay, so let me see. Where should we start? Maybe Josh, if you'd like to give a little introduction to yourself and Super Oracles, we can take it from there.
Sure. So my name is Josh. I've been in blockchain for approaching almost 5 years at this stage. Before that, I was working in SaaS, and the type of things I was interested in were food supply chain, data ownership for. I was actually involved in 3 startups in San Francisco at this time. I was like either an advisor or CTO or CEO of these projects between 2014 to 2017, and my interests were in primarily these are like SaaS organizations. So one was food supply chain, one was related to personal medical records and history, and the last one was with creators' content rights. So digital rights management, and actually back in 2015, I created something called Smart Forms, and Smart Forms were this means in which you could basically in human readable language kind of stipulate the terms of your agreement, and then this is before I knew about blockchain smart contracts, but in a centralized way you could kind of configure your contract and the code would execute it for you. And then of course by 2017, late 2016, early 2017, I heard about Ethereum. Don't get me wrong, I heard about Bitcoin quite a bit earlier. In my first like transaction, Bitcoin might have been like 2012, 2013, but I didn't really give it that much thought. I didn't realize how revolutionary it was. But when I heard about this thing called Ethereum, which of course that sounded quite fantastical, and then I finally like wrapped my head around like why you would actually do something in this way. Like it was like the most inefficient database you could ever think of. And when I started to understand, like, oh wow, there's such a huge trust problem in these centralized organizations, that's where it started to click for me. I was in San Francisco at the time, and let's say October of 2017, I set up a white paper club where I'd get some small group of us, maybe less, like maybe 9 or 10 of us, would get together every other week. We'd read through a bunch of papers, whether that was see back then we were going through things like Dfinity. Man, there's like we went through a bunch of different ones, and then that helped us understand like what are the different models. Of course, we are also breaking down the future of Ethereum, and we're being exposed to sharding and layer twos, and this was a while ago, right? And by 2018, in a Facebook group I had created as part of this white paper club, I was introduced to one of my co-founders, John Jones, who basically came to San Francisco in early 2018, where during San Francisco Blockchain Week, we became friends. I had a chance to kind of pitch in some of my ideas about oracles, and back then I was really obsessed with random number generators, and I was like knowing that blockchains are deterministic, right? I was very much interested in bringing randomness to blockchains before it was a cool topic, and I convinced him, hey, look, I have some really interesting ideas, and he was at the time was also very much into kind of incubating projects and such. So long story short, he's an American, went to Berkeley, but was living in Taiwan at the time. And he said, hey, look, Josh, I like some of your ideas. Let's become co-founders. Let me invest a little bit. Let's move to Taiwan instead, because it's a better place to bootstrap. So I said, you know what? I've never been to Taiwan. Let me check it out. Flew out there. It was interesting kind of environment and society. And I said, let me give this a try. Packed up and left, subletted my apartment, and we created a crypto crypto lab called Unity Chain. And what we did there was we kind of studied all kinds of different things, from IoT meets blockchain to randomness generation on chain. And we worked with, basically applying these blockchain technologies to, um, without even really fully knowing it, but we were doing Oracle work. So we were doing things, we did a partnership with Avantech, which is a publicly traded company here, where we would basically apply IoT to blockchain, and we'd run on off-chain like a layer of consensus. And then we also, this led us into, with my existing kind of knowledge and experience with food supply chains, led us to do a proof of concept with Walmart China. They invited us over to Shenzhen. They put us up in nice hotels and all that stuff. And they brought like 10 teams from around the world, and we were one of the teams where we were trying to solve food safety problems, right? And what we pitched them was IoT meets blockchain meets digital payments and QR codes to guarantee an unbroken cold chain logistics solution. So that was another really wonderful experience of ours. And it was along the way we studied basically as much as we could, from different layer one designs to understanding layer twos, and how to scale Ethereum in particular. And so we were quite interested in that, but where our expertise really kind of like the nexus of our expertise was securing external data on chain, applying like layer one principles to external data on chain. And last November, approximately a year ago, we kind of conceived the idea of super oracles. And in the Oracle space, effectively, especially with smart contract composability, you have to always focus on data correctness first, but a really close second is speed. And that was always kind of like in the forefront of our thinking. And basically, just in a nutshell, what super oracles is, we're applying like layer one consensus protocol ideas to the Oracle space to help secure the Oracle layer, because any data that enters any like blockchain or layer two has to go through really strict guarantees, because we all know smart contracts and such are composable, and they don't know how to verify this information otherwise. So in order to prevent cascading failures, you want to make sure that you have very strong data correctness guarantees. And that brings us to where we are today.
Cool. That's quite impressive. A lot of development, a lot of work in there in the space of a couple of years. So yeah, thank you very much, Josh, for that. I appreciate that. So maybe from there, we'll just bounce over to Jacobo. I know a lot of people here are going to be familiar, but I see we have 70 people in the audience now, which is great. So probably there's some new people who are not so familiar. Jacobo, would you like to give a little introduction for any newcomers who are listening today?
Absolutely. Thank you. So Jacobo here, background in software engineering, originally from Spain, currently based in Norway. I set up the company 14 years ago. We were doing content aggregation, serving companies like Telenor, Mozilla, Panasonic, Alcatel. So in simple terms, we acquire content from approximately 6,000 publications worldwide, and we index them and provided them via a location-based service. So we were serving approximately 50 million users a day. Some days we could go way above that number. Some days we'd be below that number. So for a few years, we learned quite a bit about the content industry. And in late 2016, we started looking at a technology called blockchain that could potentially help us to leverage the knowledge we had built. So what we did was we reached out to one of our partners at that time, Telenor, who had an individual working for them who had been working around blockchain as well for a long time. We met him, ended up becoming our COO, Mark. And long story short, at first we tried to build we were going to build a content marketplace to enable micropayments and content distribution. But we knew very soon in the process that scaling was going to be needed for us, as Ethereum was in many aspects immature. So we were going to be using a scaling solution in late 2017. But after 3 months of waiting, we got tired of it. So we did a small pivot within it, which consisted on moving ahead and building a layer 2. So we built the first version of Nami. We deployed it to testnet, I think, in May 2018. and then we deployed it to mainnet October, November 2018. So NAMI 1.0 has been on mainnet for a bit more than 3 years. No, 3 years now, sorry. And about a month ago, 3.5, 4 weeks ago, we deployed NAMI 2.0, which it is an improvised version. NAMI 1.0 only supported payments. Now we support generalized smart contracts. And for those who are familiarized with layer 2s, NAMI differentiates from the rollups in many aspects. In one end, we offer instant finality, which is a big plus. No latency, predictable fees, and a few other aspects. Like, for example, you don't need to hold our token to perform transactions on NAMI. So our understanding of scaling from coming from a, let's say, a more industrialized industry or industrialized set of products, it helped us to understand that the scaling was not only about TPS. So there were many other aspects that need to be taken care of. Those were, of course, very early hypotheses that we came up with 4 years ago. We were a little bit early to market, but now everyone is talking about layer 2s. So it's pretty good timing for us to be on mainnet and also to start deploying products, either onboarding them via existing companies that have got a product in layer 1, or bringing in the big institutional players, or of course deploying our own products. So the timing is exquisite, and of course working with Super Oracles is a big plus for us.
Yeah, I gotta say your background is awesome. What you guys are designing with instant finality and predictable fees, that's such a good thing for user experience. We also have spoken with like 200 different DeFi projects, and basically the big issues have to do with finality and predictable fees. Like when you deal with oracles and you deal with like multiple fluctuating token values, it's really hard to budget, right? So from a business planning perspective, predictable fees are such a big deal. So it's great to see that obviously through the last 4 years of your kind of deploying early, and I feel like I'm like me and my group are in the same boat as you. Like we survived the bear market. That was really ice cold, and we persevered. And along the way, we learn about what projects actually need. And I'll tell you, like when you say instant, like finality, quick finality, as well as predictable fees, these are some of the best user experience feedback that we've received ourselves as well.
Thank you, Josh, and I couldn't agree more with you. So a couple of points. It is true that sometimes we're being accused of being a little bit too humble, and the background to that story will be that when I first was introduced to blockchain, and I mean, keep in mind I'm a technical guy, although my background's in software engineering. I haven't been writing code for a few years, but still, by all means, I think like an engineer. And I did work in financial services in London, in investment bank for a couple of years, and also in the credit card industry. And finality, is such a big topic. So let's not forget, for example, the biggest market in the world, which is the FX market, that moves about $5-6 trillion a day. Those guys have got pretty awful finality, a settlement time. That is why they're looking for solutions like NAMI potentially, right? So, but anyway, when I moved towards blockchain and then I saw that nobody really cared about it, I was like, okay, so maybe that's a new trend, right? But of course, that is just wishful thinking. That is never going to be the case. So we are optimized. I mean, our digital lives are optimized for speed and for instant decisions. So having to wait multiple minutes or even multiple seconds, it is a big no-no. In the financial markets, has been demonstrated that every millisecond of latency can cost banks hundreds of millions of dollars per year. So, but yet, you go and talk to most of the roll-ups fanboys, and they will not get it, right? And in the same way we have been ignored for many years. Now I see on Twitter that some of the bigger layer 2s are now changing the narrative and saying that they have a new version coming up with instant finality, which that is just purely marketing play. It is it is impossible for a rollup to provide instant finality. So it seems like the message we have been telling for years now is starting to sink in, mainly because we have the opportunity to work with some top partners, amongst those you, and and people is realizing that there is a new kid on the block. That is actually not new. It's actually quite old. So it's the old new kid in the block, or the new old kid in the block. And as soon as they start playing with some of the products built on top of Nami, they will realize what a massive difference is working with a rollup, working with Ethereum directly, or working on top of Nami.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, people talk about the trilemma, right? So we have decentralization, scalability, and security. My actual stance, especially in the Oracle space, is kind of similar here, which you just articulated, which is there's actually a quadrilemma. You have decentralization, scalability, security, and finality. So focusing on finality, right, is not been a huge priority for many chains. And it is in the real world, it's actually the final game, right? Like you have to get to finality so that you know that it's not going to be rolled back, etc. So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting that even some folks that I'm connected to at the Ethereum Foundation kind of realized that finality was like a secondary thought, and it takes being involved in the ecosystem for a long time to realize the importance of finality. And I think your background in financial systems and such give you awareness of that. But yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. You guys have some new techniques that are, bringing some differentiation to the market. And, really I'm a ETH fanboy too. It's like, that's where I kind of got involved in this whole thing too, right? And, the truth is, it's kind of painful to use a layer one right now. So we need scalability solutions ASAP.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now that that over the next few weeks, people will be able to start playing with some of the products built on top of Nami, then finality will become even a bigger topic. Ultimately it comes down to not having to talk about it, but actually saying it, right? And which is another big problem that I've seen in the crypto industry for a few years, or for the years I've been involved. Like most of the conversations on Twitter, like if we bring up Twitter as the arena where discussions take place, right? But most of the discussions on Twitter are about purely theoretical. So you will have super intelligent guys coming from the research world with fantastic theories that they can articulate very well in words. But reality is that consumers and markets don't really care about that. Because we as consumers, what we want is something cheaper, faster, better, right? That is what we care about.
And we need it now. We need it now.
We need it now. So again, and then the markets and the market will just follow the people, right? Or actually, the market is built by the people. So if you get that critical mass using your product, then guess what? You already have got the market. But right now, the market is just basically discussions about what technology might be better, and a very good point in that sense. And again, this comes from a hyper competitive guy, which is me, is that we all should keep in mind that not all best technologies win. Right. And we need to give credit, for example, to the guys at Polygon, because they have grown very well, or quite a bit in little time, with a suboptimal technology. So ultimately, people doesn't really give a damn. If you're going to save me $50 per transaction, guess what? I'm going to use yours. And that is why Polygon has grown so much, because the Ethereum fees have never been as high as today. But the question is that good enough? Obviously not. But
I got to say real quick here.
Sure.
Just we have, we're friendly with them as well. But the truth is, I'm very interested in the truth. They had some severe rollbacks recently, and that's not really tenable for a blockchain. Like, we really need to make sure these things are, have strong safety and liveness guarantees, right? These rollbacks, and because we're talking about finality, right? They really ought to not happen if possible. So yeah, I'm kind of like I'm trying to also figure out what's going on here. That there's many different solutions, different approaches, but these rollbacks are, like it was a severe rollback. We're talking about like I think it was over 80 blocks, right? So imagine like if I had a major purchase in that 80 block period, and it got rolled back. It's as if it didn't happen, you know. So yeah, no, I'm just echoing what you're saying.
Wow, thank you for that. So I need to qualify my statement when I said before that I wanted to give them credit. So yes, I will give them credit for their growth has purely been accidental, meaning they were the only layer 2 that could support an easy transition of smart contracts from base layer to the second layer, right? And that is why we're, maybe it was coincidental, maybe it was luck. Either way, we need to give them credit for that. If I have to give them crap, I will give them crap. But I will give them crap for something we have been documenting for 3 years, which is pretty much the problems that you're mentioning right now. And we were also taunted and accused of, who are you guys? Vitalik has never spoken about you. I don't know you. How do you dare talking about that, about rollups or about Plasma-like solutions and so forth? Well, our history is there. So we have been documenting that back and forth with our own blog posts or through our Telegram community. But yeah, I'm actually, of course, I'm sad that you guys have had those problems, but at the same time, unfortunately, we're not surprised. And the other day was as well announced that they have been, the blocks have been reorganizing the network at their end. So,
Right.
which is yet another big red flag. So, the good news on AMI is that we don't have blocks, so we don't have that problem. As you sign a transaction with your wallet, the transaction is being instantly co-signed and receipt is printed, which is published. We cannot reorg anything. We don't have blocks. We don't do periodic commits. We don't have any of that. Now, there is people that sometimes talk to that said, "Oh, but I've heard about this other rollup that have got zero fees." And yeah, well, that is a cute strategy to go to market for a while, but it just means that those guys are running the system at a loss. It means that they will sooner or later they will run out of money. Even if you raise millions of dollars, what you're doing is a quick fix of heroin, right? And it's very addictive. So you give a product for free for people, you acquire a bunch of the market, and then you go like, oopsie daisy, I don't have any money left. I better figure out how to make money from this. So that is not sustainable.
Exactly. You have to have a economic model. So, am I clear enough? By the way, are you guys able to hear me, or should I speak up? Maybe I should speak up. I have a new headset here, so this is my first.
Just a little bit more, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, got it. So, I also agree. You have to have an economic sustainable model. You have node operators that are participating. You have different players and stakeholders participating. This is actual real effort, and there's compute, and there's uptime guarantees, and there's internet fees, and there's understanding X, Y, and Z. So the moment that anyone says it's free, what Tupac says about free, or let's not go there right now, but basically, it does, like you said, it's not sustainable. So there has to be some sort of economic engine here, and sure, maybe you can kind of play the Uber game where you subsidize it for a while, and that's a strategy. But you also get to a point where those economic incentives get too expensive. So it is maybe good for bootstrapping, but it's not sustainable. So I would say, yeah, I mean, you have to keep the stakeholders, happy. Like it's real infrastructure. So node operators, they need to. It needs to be a rational decision. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. Also, part of the experience that we gained many years ago working on the content distribution side was that we got to work with a lot of OEM, original equipment manufacturers, so basically phone manufacturers. Those guys could sell literally tens of millions of devices per year, but they would make, in some cases, less than $1 per device. So they were always kept on looking for value-added services that they could add to those devices that they would sell. And for example, news content was one of them, because news has got a very high degree of engagement. Then later on came ByteDance and TikTok, and we know what happened. And by the way, ByteDance, which is a company that owns TikTok, has the largest news aggregator in the world called Tuotiao. Just as a side note. But yeah, those guys were kind of the same, right? So they wanted to offer something cheap, something literally free, but then they kept on going back to the financial model. So they would be selling a device making less than $1 net per device, and then they needed to figure out other models. And unfortunately, those other models kept on, gravitating towards ads. And we both know that that we as users, we absolutely hate it. So should you start offering something for free in the blockchain industry, how are you going to monetize that? What is your ad equivalent in this industry? It doesn't really exist. Or some people could claim that, yeah, well, we will have a token and then we will promise that this token is going to do X, Y, and Z. The token will go up in value quite a bit, we'll sell, and then we will subsidize the business out of that. That's just rubbish. That doesn't, that is purely a scam, and that just doesn't work. So if you have a token, the token has to have a real purpose, right? And and we see as well some new rollups coming up right now, which doesn't seem to have a token, but have raised a ton of millions. People should wonder how come investors are giving them tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. So the answer is that most likely a token will come later. So so don't be fooled. Every business has to be sustainable. You need to make a living, and you need to know what it is that you're selling.
Yeah, I basically, let's just keep this down to the fundamental principles, and nothing's for free. Let's put it that way. By the way, I took my earphones out. Apparently they don't work that well. So hopefully this is clear. What's interesting here is, so back in the day, I had my first startup when I was like 22, 23 years old. I sold to my partner, and then I took a year off to just explore different technologies, and I got recruited into a advertising agency in Manhattan, right? So New York City, ad tech, Madison Avenue company, moved up to become the creative director. I found out, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing exactly what I hated to do. It's like, this is what makes the internet worse, right? I couldn't believe it. Like, I didn't realize, like, it took me a while, like a year and a half, to realize that these guys are just slinging data. They don't care about it. There's so much disrespect for user privacy, X, Y, and Z. And the reason why I bring this up is because you mentioned you have a background in content, and you mentioned kind of all this, just kind of this sentiment. And I agree that there isn't a free lunch. There isn't. You have to. There's some basic infrastructure, and there's infrastructure providers, and this charade of free money doesn't go on forever. Eventually, they will clamp down and charge you. Now, I think a better system is just to be forthright and say, hey, look, there are going to be fees. These fees are, not so much compared to, as much as I love Ethereum, and I've, that's how I got into blockchain in the first place. It's so expensive to transact, like even payroll and teammates and our, it's like $250 for a fee. It's just untenable. So, the solutions like you guys bring to market are just desperately needed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, thank you for that. And yeah, and I concur. So as probably most of us on this call, we might have had, or we might have someone that we have introduced to Ethereum, or several people that we have introduced to Ethereum. So we are responsible for probably having answered this question 1,000 times, right? But why is this so expensive? Here on the West, in many aspects, we're quite lucky. But if as soon as you go to other continents or to other countries, $250 for a transaction, which I've also had to pay for, by the way, in the past. It is half a month's salary for some people, or even a month's salary for some people, and that is just not sustainable. So that is the Achilles tendon of Ethereum, and now that Nami 2.0 is in the market, now it comes down to the real fun, right? Because quite frankly, I am not the expert of Nami. I'm not the protocol guy in the company. Yes, I know what it does. I know how it does it. I can have pretty intelligent discussions about it. As soon as we go very deep in the weeds, no, that is not my job anymore. It's somebody else's job. I'm a product guy, right? So now finally we can really start having a lot of fun and start building really cool, powerful stuff and shipping it out, and start attracting users and creating the next phase of the industry that just doesn't exist yet. And that is what it really gets very interesting very quickly.
Well, speaking of which, I gotta say, like, okay, so blockchains are the future. There's no doubt about that. Now, so Facebook rebranding to Meta, and apparently their new ticker is Verse. Oof, I don't know. It doesn't sit so well for me personally. I'm very eager to make sure we can scale layer ones and as through layer twos and such. These technologies bring this world to blockchain, because the real metaverse really ought to have like NFTs and such that can be transferred between different ecosystems and reusable X, Y, and Z. And there's a little bit of a Mark Zuckerberg. You got to give him some credit. Like, of all the other like Web2 technologies, it seems like it's only Facebook and Twitter maybe that are kind of getting into it. And so in that sense, we have to pay respect where respect is due. But dude, if they're coming in to try to claim the metaverse world, please, like, really, this stuff really, in my opinion, ought to exist on a layer 2. If on Ethereum, we got to scale this stuff. And what's interesting is this, though, like, suppose we can scale this stuff on a layer 2 on Ethereum, and Supra or other oracles can provide information to make NFTs and other, like tokens on this social tokens and such, actually dynamic. So, dynamic NFTs. And like, one thing we're really interested in is, like, what if we can apply performance data? So, you guys have a background in, just general content creation and ecosystems, and you mentioned 50 million users, etc. Now, in that world, like, monetization really relies on performance data, right? So cost per click, CPM, cost per milli, like 1,000 impressions, X, Y, and Z. What if we can use oracles to apply that kind of data on a high throughput network like a layer 2 to price these other assets, and then use, like, sure, when we have to publish it to Ethereum, we can use that as the final. But that's really where we think it's super exciting to work with groups like yourselves. That we, like, up until 3 weeks ago, I was convinced you can't do high frequency trading on a blockchain, until I realized you might be able to do it on a layer 2, and then commit to a layer 1 later, So I'm just curious where you're at with that, and if you have any opinions about that.
Oh, this is a very interesting topic. So first of all, I second your comment about Facebook. What calls my attention about Facebook is that it's a 15, 12? I think it's about 15-year-old company run by a youngster that and already looks like a very old company, very old-minded company. I know the folks at Facebook quite well. I can tell you, though, that, as you indicated, apart from Facebook and Twitter, nobody else is really doing much. But that has changed as of today, right? Because the moment that Facebook rebrands as Meta, it means everybody else is currently discussing on the board, how the hell can we get into that trend? How can we follow that trend? So let's not, everyone on the call should be very much aware that, despite the fact that many people doesn't really like Facebook, what Facebook has done is actually a good thing. But that, of course, takes us to the next level, right? Or to the next question, which is, which infrastructure is Facebook going to use to do all these things? So they will probably avoid, or they would like to avoid, using public permissionless blockchains. They will most likely, push their strategy towards something they have better control over. In many aspects, it's going to be equivalent to what financial institutions did 4-5 years ago when they wanted to get into blockchain. They went for fully permissioned blockchains, the Cordas, the Hyperledgers, and those likes. They set up consortiums. Today, I can tell you openly, we're having a ton of discussions with some of the big boys in the industry, and the consensus is simple. That is done. We're not touching that ever again. That is part of the history of our history. We're not going that way anymore. Now, is Facebook going to go through the same learning curve? Nobody knows. But when we talk about Facebook, we cannot avoid discussing content, because Facebook is all about content. Furthermore, everything is about user-generated content, right? And the moment you bring user-generated content to backend, it means that the problems that Facebook has been having will multiply by 1 billion. Right? So Facebook today has got tens of thousands of people going through the content, and that is being uploaded, and deciding, is this good to go or not, right? Can we publish this or not? Does it show a shade of a nipple? Should we remove it? Now, on a permissionless network, Facebook will not be able to operate because of that. With that said, one of the very, very, very interesting solutions that Facebook could be looking at is using, amongst others, of course, is using something like super oracles. So an oracle, I personally believe that it is a technology that solves very well-known problems for us. I mean, for us as individuals, as a society. The number of applications are yet still to really fully be understood by us, because keep in mind that yes, we might have Chainlink out in the market as the guy that everybody thinks about, but in reality, Chainlink hasn't really done that much, right? It is pretty slow in some aspects, and maybe not as optimal as we would like it to be. Certainly, it's not optimal enough to serve any large customer with tens of millions or hundreds of millions of requests per day, or billions of requests per day. But bringing a behemoth like Facebook into the metaverse and getting them into the user-generated content world on top of a blockchain, it is going to open, in many aspects, Pandora's box for Facebook. But yet it's going to also show us hundreds and hundreds of new applications that nobody else has ever thought about just yet. So this is very, very, very exciting. And equally, Facebook will move slower. We have the experience of seeing what they have gone through with Lira. Now it's called Numi or something like that. I don't remember the new wallet. But
Yeah.
let's not forget that all the other companies are going to be following them as of today. So very exciting times ahead.
Actually, I completely agree. This is, despite, kind of my initial knee-jerk reaction, you're correct. This is monumental. This is a $1 trillion organization saying Web3 effectively without directly saying it. Well, they've been doing it because of Novi, et cetera, right? But they're recognizing the power of this, and they also realize this cannot be stopped. So it's very smart, and you got to give credit where credit's due, that they are opening up to this world of the next generation of the web. I also, want to say that these, I do believe that the next generation of social media are going to require next generation technologies like like NAMI, and like second layer technologies to scale this. That does everything always have to be directly on the layer one? I don't believe that. Especially imagine if you have like tens of thousands of SaaS products that exist in the world that are being utilized by hundreds of millions of people daily. You just can't simply put that on a layer one. So it's very exciting where we're moving into. We are also very much interested in all kinds of different services, including you know beyond just like data servicing. We're also interested to work with groups like yourself to do off-chain computation. So in the context of a social application, what that might look like is they may have their private kind of servers computing X, Y, and Z, but those servers may be bonded on, to either a layer one or a layer two. But I'm actually more recently thinking that this has to, because people demand like quick response. This really should be communicating and interfacing with a layer two. And then, I do have my own concerns about the ability for Ethereum 2.0 to ship. I do really hope that it does happen at Q2 next year, which they're saying is happening, but I also have my severe doubts. And in the meantime, also, I think their plans are shifting because a lot of this load can maybe go to the layer twos of the world. But I do want to echo that actually it is an unmitigated good that Facebook, whether you like them or not, are giving credibility to our space, right? Web3 is happening, and it's going to be great, and it is the future. It is necessary, and yeah, I mean, us as an Oracle player want to provide different variety of services, to your network, and that includes things like participating with your existing plans of data availability and making sure that we can, ensure the security of the overall and stability of the network. So, I just want to say, I think you're quite visionary, and I think you get the picture. And we're all collectively onto something very special. This is a future. This is, and like you said, I should have given a little bit more credit to Facebook. It is monumental. It is a big shift. I mean, a publicly traded company that's worth over $1 trillion saying, "Hey, by the way, we're basically getting into the Web3 universe." They said that with, their stablecoin project, and they had some major issues, regulatory issues with that. But the metaverse and X, Y, and Z, I mean, it's clear to me. I think we can all agree that digital assets are going to be, they are property, and they're not. This digital assets as property could not exist without the technologies that folks like you guys are bringing to place. So I just got to say that this is a very exciting next 5 to 10 year period, and it's going to be just a better world. That's all I can say.
Thank you. I concur in full. I mean, now when you were Facebook, I was trying to think about an analogy of a similar scenario we might have gone through ourselves, pretty much everyone on this call, over the last 10, 15, 20 years. And I could think about when Netflix came out and what Blockbuster did, right? How much they ignored them. And then how Netflix came and ate their breakfast. Equally, Barnes & Noble, I think, was founded in what, 1890 or something like that. And then 100 years later came a company called Amazon. And they ate their breakfast. So some of these companies who had been around for a long, long time were disrupted by newcomers out of nowhere. And part of the credit that is due to Facebook is because although they're only 15 years old or something like that, they are the Barnes & Nobles and the Blockbusters of the digital world, right? Because quite frankly, it's nothing revolutionary what they do. What they do that is very well done is sustain the growth of literally billions of users, right? Using their system every day. That is absolutely, hats off. But if someone on this call can remind me of any major innovation they have done in the last few years, which doesn't consist on writing big fat checks to acquire potential competitors or competitors that they tried to get out of the market but they failed with their copycats, then I would like to hear that. I just don't know of any major innovation. So yeah, I mean, and this also takes us, of course, down to the NFT discussion, right? Which is, quite frankly, I'm not an NFT expert. So,
Really?
well, I mean, maybe I think I saw on Twitter today some people has been offering a ton of money for some CryptoPunk. So I would like to think that at least those guys are, at least they should know what they're doing with all that money. So
like publicity stunt. Just use your flash loans to buy that and sell it back to yourself in one transaction for $500 million. I mean, it's good marketing, but what's the point of that? I'm not sure. Thanks for making like Ethereum really expensive today, by the way, guys. Thanks. No, but yeah, I mean, NFTs are fascinating. So the thing is this, right? So we have right now we're at this era of profile pictures and exclusivity clubs based off of X, Y, and Z. But really, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? This is just the beginning of the movement. I mean, actually, when we do dive into this deeper, it turns out that most things in life in the physical world are actually could be represented as NFTs. Most things are actually not fungible. Sure, we have money, but like, okay, so ownership of this very specific, it's not the best example, but
an art piece in my house. You can't. It's not fungible. You can't like, there's only one of those, right? So, the long-tailed assets that can be represented as NFTs, such as real estate, etc. These are just the beginning. And imagine if we can create really what blockchains and these kind of NFTs represent. I think is unlocking a lot of potential value in real-world assets and allowing it to be more liquid, and also creating a global marketplace. So whereas before, a house in Michigan was only visible to, maybe a 50-mile radius of potential buyers, now you have potential global, marketplace that might be interested to purchase this, house off of Lake Michigan, like off of the coast of Great Lakes. So this is just one mere example of what could happen. And what's great about this is that really what this means is we can start to like put static assets to work. So maybe I don't actually own a bunch of land or anything like this, but suppose I did own a bunch of land or gold, for example. That is like a static asset. It's not doing anything. I'm not earning any yield off of that. But it allegedly has some value. But with blockchain and NFT technologies, with conjunction with secure oracles, you can also put this stuff to work. Maybe I can prove that I have ownership of this and put it as collateral into a DeFi protocol. And these are just, I'm just saying, it opens up the door, Pandora's box, so to speak, right? So yeah, I mean, it's very exciting.
I concur in full. I mean, although
Sorry, my earphones just turned on and off. Let me turn this off here. Disconnect.
sure, no,
sorry about that.
the last minute and a half, you went a little bit further away from the microphone, but we could still hear you relatively
Okay.
well.
I'm back.
But
I disconnected that.
much better now. Yeah, much better now. Now, I mean, and again, I'm probably older than most of the guys, and although I find most of the NFTs truly interesting in the form they are today, some of the amounts of money being paid are, for NFTs might be absolutely ridiculous. Some people might think that it is, bollocks. Whatever, it's fine. I get it. I'm not particularly fan of art myself either, so I wouldn't pay millions of dollars for a Mona Lisa. Not because someone would pay it. I mean, in fact, I don't know anything about art, to be honest. So equally, it means that maybe you shouldn't be given too much of an opinion about how much someone is willing to pay for a JPEG, right? At the end of the day, everybody's interested in something, and that is what we need to accept. But with that said, what I like about the current market conditions of the NFT industry is that it has brought it to the attention of everyone. So everybody, every single brand that I've been speaking to or I've heard of, everyone is talking about NFTs. And unlike 4 years ago, today we have the technology available to actually do some pretty groovy stuff with NFTs. So 4 years ago, this conversation or this situation would have been massively counterproductive, because by the time the next bear market comes, what would happen is exactly what happened. Companies disappeared, people ran away with money, markets became pretty dry, no more VC money for a while, so that stops innovation and so forth. But now the moment that you bring big brands, they start scratching their heads, figuring out how can I make use out of this artifact to acquire more users, or to give my brand a different, just to put into different dimension and whatnot. And then this is pretty good, because whenever the bear market comes, if the bear market comes, nobody knows, of course, at least you can still have a set of commercial products with clear purposes to do something for the customers of those brands.
Yeah.
And that is the conversation that I see starting to take place right now. So this is really, really for us as an industry player, for all of us.
Yeah, it's a really good sign. I mean, even for us, we're part of the MasterCard Start Path program. So this is MasterCard's first like crypto projects, and we're talking about like multi-billion, hundreds of billions of dollars projects. Everyone is crypto curious at this stage. Like, it's undeniable. How could you not be? Okay, and like as you mentioned before, Facebook, right, is basically saying, dude, we're going metaverse. And then like, what is the metaverse without NFTs and cryptography and blockchain and ownership of the web? It's way not as cool without that. So like as you're saying, like we are all moving into this era of these massive organizations are trying to figure out where this all fits in. Now, these organizations do like high throughput, insane volume in centralized servers, and they look at Ethereum and they're like, this could never physically work, right? So they have to go to other solutions, including layer ones inside. I mean, layer twos, especially. The reason why they choose layer twos over layer ones, and I gotta say, I want to let you guys know a little bit of insight. Some of these organizations have their private DLTs, but a lot of them are Ethereum based, and this means that there might be a little bit better compatibility, meaning like they literally might be using, ECDSA, cryptography, signature schemes, X, Y, and Z, which makes it easier to interoperate, right? So, from our side of the channel, interfacing with the MasterCards of the world and others, we're seeing that basically this is happening. And I gotta say, like, as much as I love Ethereum, we gotta get to scale it fast. And Ethereum, it really needs layer twos ASAP. It's a real thing. So I think you guys are in a good spot, and it's really, I gotta give you guys credit. I mean, surviving through that bear market was hard. I went through it myself. It was really difficult. And to stick with it means that you're in it for the right reasons. Like, we're actually in it for the tech, but we're in it for the tech plus the social impact, right? Because we know that this makes the world so much more efficient. So, like, for example, Kathy Wood, right, of ARK Invest, she talks about how blockchain technologies are actually a deflationary force. In a world where we have so much inflation, she talks about blockchain technology as a deflationary force. Why? Is because it ultimately gets rid of the middleman, right? So, what this means is basically the world gets hyper efficient. What this means is the cost of productivity and resources and coordination and just cost of goods goes down. And it means more prosperity for us all. So, the thing is, like, ultimately, yeah, a lot of the VCs and, kind of centralized traditional finance world is going to get into this game, but we can kind of transmute that and sublimate it into the better system ultimately in the Web3. So I think what you had said about Facebook really did help shift my personal perspective. I shouldn't be like, oh, these guys are trying to copy us. I should be more like, you know what? This is a huge deal. It's a huge signal. Basically, it's legitimizing what we're doing in a huge way. And how do we scale this stuff? It takes scaling technologies. Let's put it that way.
I was thinking when you were talking about blockchain has come to stay. In reality, blockchain should change its name to Thanos, because right now blockchain is inevitable. So because the moment that you have so many high caliber individuals or people of with power or companies embracing it, it is clearly inevitable. Now I'm going to say something else though that I've realized about Facebook that might change your opinion again.
Okay, sure. I'm listening.
And that is, I mean, I've had a super busy day, so I didn't, I saw it last night that Zuckerberg came out with a new name, and today I haven't really spoken with any team members or anyone and discussed it. We have just been from meeting to meeting to meeting. But what I don't like about Facebook, and I've just realized listening to you, is that the little buggers, they have played a very, very, very good stunt here, because now they will claim that they are the metaverse.
Correct.
By choosing the name that they have chosen. So still, they will become the de facto metaverse by, in the eyes of most of the population worldwide. But yet at the same time, I personally don't care. What I care is that they are on board. What I care is that our jobs are going to be a lot easier. And what I care is that they will never, ever, ever move at the same speed as we can move, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We're always going to be 5 years ahead.
Absolutely. So they will play catch-up game, which again takes us to the next wave of movements we will see from Facebook, which will be trying to deploy some pretty half-arsed projects, which will not work, and they will go out in the market and start spending money buying companies that actually can do something for them. And I wouldn't be surprised if the first acquisitions go, for instance, into the gaming industry, which is kind of the same as they did, right? So Facebook suffered phenomenal growth after they kind of stagnated for a while. Phenomenal growth, and that was part thanks to the games that the Farmvilles and those games. I don't remember the studios that deploy them, but they had a very solid growth. And of course, games and NFTs are born to, or are meant to happen, right? Those are going to be a big one. Yeah. I mean, I think that the next 5-10 years are going to be super, super exciting. And back to the bear market, yeah, it was painful, of course. And again, I can see scrolling through the call, we have a lot of our old OGs on the call. We have been always very, very transparent, as much as we could, of course. But the bear market was painful. We still managed to build a solution on top of Nami, which is still active. It is not a DeFi or NFT solution. It is an IoT energy here in Norway, in the North Sea. Good experience. We now the company is working on the second version, which hopefully will sell more because these guys are hardware guys, are not software guys. But yeah, the next 5-10 years are going to be stunning. So really, really, really fun.
Yeah.
So
I just want to say real quick. I mean, the ability to persevere is incredibly important in this industry. Like we have been offered millions of dollars in the past as well by unscrupulous investors, and we said no because it was just not the right. It was just like we're not here for just to make money really quickly. We're here to change the fucking system, right? So like when I see the Facebooks of the world get in the game, I'm like, yeah, this is good, but also I'm like, I hope that they don't stop our momentum. I hope we can decentralize media in general, and I hope that scaling technologies like you guys are bringing to the table can help do that. and I know that oracles will, especially highly secure oracles and highly performing oracles, are going to play a role in this, especially when we do off-chain computation and data validity proofs, etc. We can definitely be an ally in that regard, and that's what we're looking for. But I gotta say that projects and teams that can persevere through that brutal bear market, that's a very, very good sign. Let's put it that way.
I agree. I mean, I always claim, also to my team, and I see that we have a couple of team members here on the call, that I'm not the smartest on the bunch by far. But when it comes down to grit, I will wear anyone out. So, but yeah, I mean, it comes down to what is your real motivation? What do you get it? Because this industry, by the way, it is absolutely brutal. So it is not. I mean, in one aspect, it can be the most rewarding industry because the upside is phenomenal and it's basically blue ocean. So you can do a lot of really good stuff, but yet at the same time, behind the scenes, is very, very, very dirty. So
Yeah. I mean,
and
we are like, that's the thing. Like, we should know that human nature is both, and
yes.
we need to have a lot of self awareness. And while we are bringing about the next paradigm, and I have 100% belief in this, that the world is going to be better with blockchain technologies, right? Um, there are also the short-term thinkers that are going to hit and run. Uh, I'll tell you this much: the long-term players, like, this is a long-term game that should be played with long-term people, and that mentality is going to ultimately play out better. I mean, I was in San Francisco doing, kind of early into this, blockchain thing. I was I was doing day trading, and I was doing okay. But I see, and after just analyze my results, like, oh crap! If I just made a couple of bets and held it for the long run, I would have done like much better. So this is what I'm trying to suggest is find projects that are long-term thinking, that are long-term players, that understand the long game and are in it for the right reasons. And the founders like yourselves and myself, we're not going to disappear because we're literally here for impact, you know. And by the way, I'm having a lot of fun.
Same here. Same here. I mean, I concur in full. It is. We also had. I mean, not in the blockchain or when we were doing blockchain, but in 2015, I think it was. We had an acquisition offer by one of the top guys in Silicon Valley. At that time, we had just raised at I think it was $10 million pre-money valuation, something like that. And the offer that was given to me, which happened over a sandwich. After we had a meeting with this guy, we went out for a sandwich in San Fran, and he said, "Hey, listen, this is my budget. I can sign it off right now. Would like to buy you." I was like, "Oh, well, we just raised a little bit more than that, or at a valuation." From a principal point of view, I couldn't do it, although the investor would have lost maybe on, and that would have changed my life completely. But it is important to remember what took you to the place where you are right now, or that you chose to be in. Because before that, quite frankly, I had a pretty comfortable life. I'm not a rich guy, but I had worked my ass off for many, many years, and I managed to save money. So I had by easy life, I mean, I didn't have a mortgage, and I could make a good living every month, right? But then I decided to complicate my life a little bit. That's why I went into entrepreneurship, and I like the freedom. I like it gives me a kick being able to work with super intelligent individuals that are motivated and they really want to do good, powerful stuff. That is what really moves me. And you need to find people that is like-minded. Because when the bad times come, the bad times are actually pretty nasty.
Oh yeah.
When the good times come, on the other hand, they are pretty fucking good, right?
Yeah, we can't forget where we came from, though, right? So the depth of that cold bear market, you got to remember that. So I always keep that in the back of my mind to keep grounded. We have very similar stories, man, where I had a group of Japanese and Chinese investors trying to invest millions of dollars. It would have made me rich, but it would have killed the potential. And also, by the way, it was through this perseverance. It was like towards let's just say the last 1/4 of the entire experience, where a lot of the breakthroughs happen.
Yep.
It's like, oh, wow, like you have these realizations, like this is such a dynamic field. There's so much information to absorb that you have to be disciplined to do the work and be involved and be in the game. So I resonate a lot with your experience. And also, I do try to remind our team, and my teammates are, we've been together for a while, so we remember the bear market, how cold it was, where blockchain was super hot and then it became a dirty word and now it's hot again. It's like, okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. But the good news is this is going to, like, I'm 120% certain this is the future. So
It is.
yeah.
And now we have Facebook on board, so even better. Haha. We'll see.
Yeah, so that's a good way to shift the mentality there. Yeah, put it that way.
Perfect. So I believe we might have to have questions. Is that right?
Sure.
Yes, I was actually just gonna suggest that, and that was a wonderful conversation for the past hour. Super interesting. So hopefully we've kind of prompted a few thoughts from the audience, and hopefully we'll have some questions. So if anybody has anything they'd like to ask, you should see a little button in Discord to raise your hand, and then I can add you to the speaking part of the call, so you'll be able to ask the questions direct. So yeah, if anybody has anything, just raise your hand. So there was one or two questions that I seen in the Discord. So maybe if nobody has anything at the minute, I can ask them in place of the community.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions from technology to culture to anything, or very open here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, so I think this first one I have is probably aimed more to Jacobo. So what is the go-to-market plan for DeFi solutions on NAMI in terms of incentivizing liquidity to make sure pairs have significant depth?
Good question. So we are going to be announcing incentives over the next few days, couple of weeks. We have put together what I would say is a pretty decent strategy. Keep in mind that these last, I think, 12 months, we have been incentivizing the liquidity on Uniswap, first on Uniswap v2 and now on Uniswap v3. We have learned a lot of lessons from it. So with our upcoming deployment of NiFi, what we're going to do is take some of those lessons learned, apply them together with some of the partners that we're going to bring to provide liquidity. So stay tuned. Very, very soon we will be announcing that.
Awesome. That sounds great. And okay, I believe we've excuse me. I believe we've one question here from one of our moderators in the Discord.
First of all, hello, Josh. Nice to meet you. And hello, Jacobo. Nice to see you.
Hello.
My question is, which I get written a lot, asked a lot of the community, is where is the point when Nami / NiFi will bend his knees and there will be a lot of transaction, and where's the point there are too much transactions that the technology can't get all of them through?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I suppose that what you're asking is when are we going to start seeing transactions going through NiFi and Nami? Is that the question?
My question is, there will be going a lot of transaction through Nami, and we can't really speak about transaction per seconds, because you said that there will be no limit, but the technology, the hardware will have its limits. Where will this point come?
Oh, of course, of course, of course. Okay, right. So let me demystify the no limit transaction. Everything has got a limit, and what we have been saying is that we can scale horizontally. What do we mean by that? Is that although we are always going to be limited by the limitations of either the hardware we'll be using or the software we'll be using, or a combination of the both. What we can provide is elasticity on our infrastructure. So as more users come, we can keep on providing the same level of service to those users. So what we are not saying is that we can offer an infinite number of transactions per second, simply because there is no technology in the world that can offer an infinite number of transactions per second. What we are saying is that if right now, for example, we had 1 million users today in the system, and our infrastructure was designed to support that, and then that load would represent X number of transactions per second. So basically, all those users could have an optimal user experience using whatever product they're using. And then the day after, we have an extra 2 more million users coming in, which will multiply 2x our existing user load. Our technology, our background, our infrastructure should be elastic enough to accommodate those users as they come in. That is what we mean. Okay?
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, so that is what it means.
Did we already had a stress test with that, and is it documented?
Absolutely not. We don't have a stress test for that. And the reason why we don't have a stress test for that is because early optimization is the root of all evil. So we know the software stack we're using. We know that the software stack that we are building on top of can support, millions and millions of users, concurrent users. What we're focused on right now is on high availability, meaning making sure that whatever infrastructure we take out is robust enough. Why? Because we know that we're not going to get 1 million users the day after we go live with whatever product. And you will say, but how can you control that? Well, of course, we cannot control it. We cannot control if these or that user is going to deposit whatever money and control that. But we have put some mechanisms in place. Like, for example, the other day, someone from L2Bit was accusing us of most likely users going aping into our solution. Well, that's not going to happen, mainly because to start with, we have limited what tokens we're going to be supporting on NAMI mainnet for the time being. None of those are the well-known shitcoins that everyone likes to play around with. So there are only, I think it's about 12 tokens or 10 tokens. So they're the well-known ones. People will be careful trading those. We're also we're gatekeeping today who can deploy solutions on top of NAMI, because again, we would like to avoid all possible scams from using NAMI as a mechanism to make money. So again, we think we have put enough artifacts in place to avoid that from happening. But yeah, we will do a lot more testing around the maximum TPS that we allow as we go ahead along. I mean, it's not our priority right now. I know that most of the discussions around the scaling on Twitter is about measuring how many transactions per second you can do. I'm not concerned about that. Mainly because none of those guys has products serving 50 million users a day, but we did. So.
Okay, thank you for your answer. I think Darren have a lot more questions prepared for us if the community don't have other questions.
Yes, I've got one. I've got a couple lined up here now. So jump to the next one. So this. Sorry, I didn't quite.
No, sorry. I was saying that I see that 2 or 3 people.
Yes, the signal's kind of coming and going there. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that clearly, but I think you're referring to the questions that are being asked in the channel now. So maybe we could go with this one first. How will layer 2 be affected if Ethereum implements proof of stake and sharding fully? Will we still need this is how I'm interpreting this question. Will we still need speed due to congestion if things like proof of stake and sharding were to resolve that? That was my interpretation of the question. Came up in the channel.
Yes, 100%. So ETH 2.0, and by the way, Josh, I did not second your comment about your skepticism. ETH 2.com. I share that with you 100%. But ETH 2.0, the only thing it's going to provide is a more efficient layer 1. Proof of stake hopefully will reduce the fees as well of those transactions. By no means the base layer will be used by the Facebooks of the world or by the Metas of the world. ETH 2.0 is still going to need layer 2s because layer 2s are going to give customers and companies and individuals the level of control they want. Like, one simple problem that Ethereum will never fix is that you will need ETH on your wallet to transact. Right? So if you're the CFO of a company you would like to deploy, I tell you what, I will never be able to convince you if I have to tell you that the product I'm going to deploy on Ethereum means that users will have to hold ETH in their wallets. So no, it's fine. ETH 2.0 is good for us, but it's not a killer for layer 2s at all.
Cool, that sounds great. Okay, so I've got one or two requests to speak here, so I'm going to add in Hill399. Her question.
I'm probably gonna chime in there a little bit. I mean, these systems are so high throughput that it's actually it's not feasible to put it on the layer 1 only. You need multiple scalability solutions in order to accommodate. So yeah, let's put it that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh, as well. Okay, so Hill399, you should have access to speak there now, if you'd like to ask your question.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Kobo and Josh. I've just got a question for Josh, namely. I missed the beginning of the call, so apologies if you've answered it. But what differentiates super oracles from other oracle solutions, and how do you deliver data trustlessly?
Mm-hmm. So, traditional models, I mean, like we go through all this trouble to decentralize a blockchain, right? And then we get congested by an Oracle solution that is centralized. When I say centralized, I'm saying you have to go beyond 13 to 21 nodes servicing your smart contract. Because, you go through all this trouble to decentralize a blockchain, which we're talking about hundreds or thousands of nodes. And then you are reliant on 13 nodes to give you the data that triggers smart contract reactions. So the problem is that the small cluster of nodes, that's the problem. In many kind of famous Oracle models, we have small clusters of nodes that are not changing or rotating. In fact, many of them are in the same Discord. Many of them are actually the same operator with different names. Okay. Now, think about this. I am a small group of nodes that are powering a major DeFi protocol on the layer 1 that holds billions of dollars in total value locked. From a purely game theory point of view, it's so unstable to let 13 nodes that don't change or rotate constantly feed the data into the layer 1. So we're talking about the ability to do a couple of things. One is, of course, collusion. We're all right, the simple attack is let's read the data, get our bots to trade before that data is submitted to make sure we get out of that position because we know this data is no good or it's not good for my current position in the DeFi protocol. This is happening all the time right now, guys. Talking about miner extractable value, it's happening all the time. Now, how are we different? What we do is we use a randomization protocol that every kind of cycle we call it, let's just say every 5 minutes, we have what we call clans in our system. Clans are groups of, committees of nodes, let's say size, same size as 13 perhaps, of which 2f plus 1, or 9 out of 13 nodes, have to hit a threshold signature. Now, the key is certain Oracle providers may have a small committee between 13 to 21 nodes, but those nodes are not changing, right? So just like the analogy I like to give is, imagine water, like a body of water. If the body of water is not flowing and it's just the same static identities and nodes, it's going to fester and become a swamp. They're going to communicate with each other. They're literally in the same Slack and Discord groups together, and you might not even realize it. It might be, an individual, his sister, his mother, his cousin, etc., in the same group, and they may be exerting a small influence on the reported data on the order of like basis points, and no one really can really tell, or they're reading the data before they submit it. Now, in our model, right, we have these things called clans and tribes. Nodes are organized into clans, and multiple clans compose a tribe. And we utilize what's called a verifiable random function every 5 minutes to rotate the clans that are distributed to the different data sources. And suppose we have 21 data sources, right? And we have this verifiable random function to assign a different clan to the data source of the 21. So of the total 21 different data sources, a random clan is assigned. And furthermore, the constitution of the clan itself, every epoch, maybe every 6 to 8 hours, is also randomized. So what we have here is a constant flow of node membership manning this data, and we have a very strict threshold among the nodes and the clans. And furthermore, of the 21 data sources we have pre-vetted, like we pre-qualified them, aka those are known entities. Our nodes are connected to their WebSockets. They have to run thresholds agreement at the data source, and then we utilize 15 of 21 data sources in our final calculation. And effectively, this gives us a robustness at the data source and also robustness in case the data source itself is Byzantine. The key here ultimately is you need to rotate your Oracle nodes in that regard in order to give you kind of layer 1 guarantees. Like we're applying blockchain security guarantees to our Oracle layer. Now, what's cool about VRFs are that this can be calculated very quickly. So every 5 minutes, we can reshuffle our network basically. And this just gives us tremendous security guarantees. And that's why, really what our go-to-market strategy here is data correctness, as well as like very industry grades, best in industry grade data correctness guarantees, while also being extremely performant, So early in this call, we talked about finality. In our model, we can't do exactly the same finality as NAMI does, but we do aim for 3 to 5 second finality. So 3 to 5 second refresh rates is what we aim to do. Did that make sense?
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. We've got 1 or 2 more people waiting to speak. Books Beta, I'm going to invite you to the stage to speak now.
Hi.
There.
Hi, Jacobo, and everybody else. I've just got a general question, really. I mean, I work currently for a fintech, and it's something that Josh said earlier in the call with regards to DLT. I know my company itself looked at DLT initially, maybe even had an implementation or POC with regards to that. So my question is, from a legacy or traditional institutional point of view, what do you see the appetite for adoption of blockchain technology? I'm not talking about NFTs because I know that's hot at the moment, or DeFi. I'm more talking about using blockchain technology in their day-to-day business.
Sure. Is that a question for Josh or for me or for both of us?
Both.
You want to go first, Josh, or do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it kind of ties to what you had said earlier, Jacoba, in terms of like settlement. So when you have these legacy systems, it actually takes hours, if not days, or multiple days to settle these transactions. And it's because we have all these like data silos that are like not really communicating with each other. So if we could use something like a trust layer, like aka a blockchain, to do the final settlement, like we can do a lot of this calculations and transactions on a layer 2 off chain, etc., but periodically settle fully directly on a blockchain on the order of maybe once an hour. Once an hour is significantly better than once every 3 days, which a lot of the legacy financial system is currently like that is their norm. So really the pressure, I believe, beyond sure the culture of NFTs and the creators' rights, which is wonderful to see, by the way, is that everyone is trying to be more efficient in the end. More efficiency means faster clearance, etc., and settlement. Ultimately means more bucks. So purely on a standard business model point of view, there is a lot of pressure to be high performing, and just like this settlement layer, like even for the major corporations of the world, it's still multiple days. Like banks, Swift, MasterCard, Visa, etc. It could be multiple days, but imagine if you had a trusted, unhackable like infrastructure where you can believe in it, and then you can basically, to hate, to like not hate on like their existing models, just you leverage what they currently do, they can make more money. So like this pressure of them being more efficient and like being more, basically is causing real adoption, because like we all got this, or most of us got into this technology because we think it's transformative, and it's transformative because you get rid of so many middlemen. And what that means is you ultimately have more efficiency, which means higher margins. So, Mike, the gentleman Mike Novogratz back in 2017, 2018 used to say, the herd is coming. Well, yeah, it took like 3 or 4 years, but the herd is slowly but surely coming. And when you have like Bitcoin and Ethereum hitting all-time highs beyond trillion-dollar market caps, this is like something you can't ignore. So yeah, it's a golden age for us. I mean, honestly, I think we're all entering a kind of a next generation renaissance, and this technology is going to just make the world better. And in the backdrop of COVID, it's just going to be amplified. So it's just the timing is so great, and I think enterprise all knows they have to understand this technology better.
I agree in full with what Josh has said. I will add only a couple of things. One of them is the appetite that we see today from enterprises, companies, large, medium-sized businesses, is mostly driven by the noise that they hear in the market. Reason for that is because blockchain is difficult to understand, so not everybody. In fact, very, very, very. So it is easier for them to be onboarded via trends that they hear about, right? And the reason for that is actually simple, meaning nobody likes to be portrayed as stupid. So if you walk in a company and you try to sell them blockchain, they have never heard about blockchain, they don't even know how it works, people hate to look stupid. However, if you have 1 billion people reading about NFTs on Fortune magazine, this newspaper or that newspaper about DeFi, they will at least pretend that they get it. So it's going to be easier for them to want to adopt that. Why? Because, as Josh indicated, we cannot forget that technology is about productivity improving, right? So that is why technology has become so important in our lives. But this is not new. It has been like that for thousands of years. So we invented tools. Of course, they couldn't be labeled as technology. But later on, during the different industrial revolutions, we have invented technology that has helped us to improve to improve productivity. Well, it comes down to reducing costs, reducing time, magnifying returns, and so forth. So I foresee the first big embracements will be by NFTs. And in fact, I can tell you that we're speaking with a bunch of companies, big companies that are looking into that. And then soon after that, we will see new trends taking place.
Speaking of which, I have a kind of a bizarre one that we came across recently. So, in a world in which central bank digital currencies, right? And we talked about Facebook and the traditional finance world getting involved. It does seem like central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are going to gain a little bit more steam. Now, this is, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous about this because of the privacy aspects of this and total control of, like, basically central banks is maybe in some regards like the opposite of what we all want. But it seems like these are happening now. A lot of enterprise and banks and like major corporations are looking into this kind of technology because you can imagine maybe digital payments are more convenient than cash. In fact, our future generations might think that cash is very weird and like you're touching dirty paper. That's weird. Like dirty coins. Like, why would you do that? So can you imagine like the next generation might actually be thinking that? But this has its own kind of issues here. I think while it may force people to get used to digital payments in general, I hope it does also wake people up to the potential privacy issues related to this, and I hope it does compel people to utilize public blockchains and pseudonymous transactions, etc., and that people wake up to owning their own data and controlling their own data and managing their own data. So whereas the adoption of central bank digital currency is kind of in some sense might be adding to efficiencies, but is also eroding privacy. I hope this, blockchain technologies and scaling technologies in particular can help basically give you a seamless, transaction experience while giving you some level of control over your identity, your personal information. So yeah, this is something actually we all ought to keep in the back of our minds that this reality is actually encroaching upon us quickly. And we need to philosophically consider the implications of what that means. Because I'll tell you this much: central bank digital currencies give central banks complete visibility into everything. So, anyways, it's something that we have to, as a collective, be aware about.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we have another question? Yeah, I see that we have one more person requesting to talk, so I will invite you to talk.
Hello, guys. Thank you for the talk so far. Hope you guys can hear me all right.
We can hear you good.
All right, cool. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly where I heard this. I think it's like a 10x rule or something like that. But they say that tech has to be like 10 times better than, the incumbent in order to be able to disrupt. So, just curious to hear some of your thoughts on the so-called like first mover advantage, as Polygon seems to be the choice on the L2 choice on Ethereum. So, like, how can a smaller player like Nami compete? I'm sorry if you already answered this countless of times, but I'm pretty new into this into this channel, so be happy to hear some of your thoughts there.
Absolutely. So, and thank you for the question, by the way. So, I think it's important to separate between what perception might be and what reality might be. Let me give you an example. So, when we were doing the content aggregation business, quite a bit of our competitors talked about number of users that they had, and they would bend reality just to favor their marketing message. So they would be talking about this month, for example, we have had 50 million users visiting our webpage, and they would carefully say those words. They wouldn't say unique users, because the moment that you take 50 million users in a month, then suddenly it doesn't count to much more than a few hundred per hour through the month. So suddenly it's not that sexy. And you might be wondering, why am I saying that? I'm published by Polygon. And it's important that everyone gets educated on this subject. So first of all, they talk about users when they refer about wallets. And that is something that I just don't buy. Point number one. Point number 2, you as a user, you could have 10 wallets, and I wouldn't know that, right? Point number 3, they do talk a lot about all these products or all those tools that they have, which is true. They have done a phenomenal job onboarding. But I would say that if we would analyze the data, we would soon see 80-20 Pareto rule, by which at least 80% of the volume of their transactions comes from only 20% of the solutions. Point number 3, when they have had some decent load on transactional volume, they have struggled. Meaning the system became too slow or too expensive to use. Point number 4, they have recently increased their fees by 30x. So now you tell me, if you had any high street company working on Polygon, how happy would they have been by changing the fees 30x? Point number 5, Polygon is not really that secure. And point number 6, they don't have the experience of having built something at a scale the same way as we have. So because of all these reasons and many other ones, I feel quite confident about our capabilities. And furthermore, I would say that it is actually very good for some competition. Oh, and then I will, of course, finish saying that nobody should, by any means, believe that this is a one-player-takes-it-all industry, because that is absolutely not going to be the case.
Yeah, it's a huge industry, guys. Like everything is going to be rebuilt with Web3 because it's more efficient ultimately and more trustful. I truly believe like a lot of the like you're going to create new things with new capacity, new capabilities that just weren't possible before. And yes, we will tap into Web 2 ideas because business models don't come out of anywhere. Like the ideas that work are going to be replicated, but in a different way on Web3, probably where the participants actually benefit from this, user-generated content. There's going to be a kind of a positive flywheel. Now, furthermore, Moonkin, your question about 10x, in our case as an Oracle, our math, everything we do actually in these systems are mathematically driven. And the math is indicating we're at like 100 times more secure than the incumbents, maybe more, like massively more secure guarantee as far as data correctness that we provide. Furthermore, for us, it's been very important to be hyper performance. So you never sacrifice security first, because in blockchain, you don't have the ability to rewind transactions. Traditional finance, they have like the day ends, and then like if there was a problem, you could rewind transactions, stuff like this, because you don't have finality in absolute settlement. In our case, we always prioritize data correctness first, and because we have our particular, we're applying basically blockchain level principles to the Oracle layer, we have it's more than 100x security guarantee than the incumbents. Okay. Furthermore, we also have a 10x improvement in performance, meaning we're able to have this refresh rates that's much more frequent. So we are actually trying to compete as a much better product. We are not the first movers, but we are trying to compete as a better product. And you can imagine with smart contract platforms that will ingest information, it'll just compute it and do its thing, especially with composability, which means like the ability for smart contracts to interact with each other. The most important thing, and we have spoken to 200 founders and DeFi products and layer 2 founders, very well respected thinkers in the space, and they all agree, or majority rather, that data correctness and security is always more important than speed. Yet I just want to make this really clear. Speed is a very close number 2 priority for us. So yeah, we are in our case, we are also going to market with a very differentiated product. And in our case, I think 100 times or more secure should be compelling.
Okay, so if there's anything, Josh or Jacobi, you'd like to add before we close the call, it was really enjoyable. I hope everybody enjoyed it. But yeah, if we have any closing points we'd like to go with.
I just want to say that Web 2 world moving into blockchain, they need to rely on scalability technologies like layer 2s and such. So I think, and honestly, like earlier today, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to transact on Ethereum layer 1. It's way too expensive, and we desperately need solutions ASAP. So yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you so much, Josh. We are looking forward to working with you very much. I think that the work that you guys are doing is also paramount and very important, and we look forward to the next few months working closely with you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. And thank you so much as well for joining us today. I very much appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime. Thanks a lot.
And and the last thing I would like to mention as well is over the next few minutes, we are going to take out to public testing the first version of NeFi. So we have been playing with it now for a few weeks on testnet, and now this is not on Robson, but on Nami's. So the little tiny video that we sent over the other day, where the world could see that you could do a swap NeFi in no time. People will be able to play with it right now. We will then, so this is basically a public testing phase, and we will be opening it up on mainnet very, very, very soon as well. So feel free to play with it. Also, one of our community members who's still on the call has been a super, super kind guy and has developed a faucet. So if any of you would like to get some test money, you can also try to go and break the faucet. I know that right now you're probably swearing, thinking, why did you say that? Alternatively, you just can come here on our Discord for some test ETH on Nami, and we'll give you some. But yeah, I mean, stay tuned. Thank you so much, guys, for showing up to the call. You can go to test.nefi.com to start playing with Nami. With NeFi on Nami. And hope this was useful. We have gone 12 minutes over the time. I didn't expect the long to take that long, but I've really enjoyed speaking with you and so thank you so much.
Amazing. Thanks again, Jacobi. Just one thing I'll add at the end of that. You will be able to find this community call on Nami's official YouTube channel. So if there was any parts you missed or you want to share it with some friends, you'll be able to find that there, along with the previous community call from just around a month ago. So yeah, that's definitely worth checking out, and we can share links in the Discord and the Telegram for anybody that's interested. Cool. Thank you very much. I'll end this call. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys.